After a dramatic return for the championship, we are back at the Temple of Speed for round 2 of the Platinum Pilot Series. But tonight, it's not Monza as you know it. It has one major difference. No first chicane. Our field of cars will be thundering through a shortcut often used for low downforce testing and pile into Della Roggia at much higher speeds than normal. If it's chaos you're looking for, this is where you're going to find it. My name is Taylor Mills, alongside me is Amity Pulsatrix, and we will be live from Lights to Flag here on ABN. Nestled in a stunning national park, Autodromo di Monza has stood here for over 100 years as one of the oldest active racetracks in the world. Host of Formula One Grand Prix, WEC events, and the Rally di Monza, the light now shines on the PPS field. It's almost strange to say there are 9 corners here, 6 to the right and 3 to the left, but they are a wonderful mix of long, high-speed corners and tricky, slow traction zones. How much aero dare you trim off when you need so much of it for the likes of Ascari and Parabolica? So as we welcome you back to the championship and cruise towards the start of the second event, allow me to reintroduce you to Stock Cars on Road Courses enthusiast, producer extraordinaire, Amity Pulsatrix.
Oh, you know me too well, Taylor. This is going to be one of the most interesting tracks on the circuit because, as you mentioned, there is no turn 1 and 2. There's just chicane's gone. You're bypassing that. But as you mentioned while we were waiting to get ready for the broadcast, Alex Miller is quoted as having said about this track, "Deleting the chicane at Monza is the racing equivalent of throwing your dirty laundry under the bed and calling your room clean." And you can surmise it's because the mess at turn 1 just gets moved to the next chicane on the list, and that is going to be true here today as well. It is going to be a very interesting little situation here when the cars miss the first turns on that first chicane and go straight barreling down to the second chicane. As you can see on your screen now, it is going to be an absolute bloodbath, but that's what we love about Monza.
A field of 30 LMP2s will be entering that, well, what is now the first chicane at over 290 kilometers an hour. That's a car on its own with absolutely zero slipstream. But when you've got the leader who's got 30 grumbly V8s behind him, how on earth are they even going to start to think about defending against that absolute pack of buzz boxes? You can only imagine it's going to be nigh on impossible. I think the only solace there is the fact that you can get that much shorter run on the inside of Curva Grande, which should make building a run for anyone else behind a lot more difficult. But yeah, I think whoever starts on pole position today in either class is going to have a very tricky job of entering the second corner in first place. All eyes are going to be on the likes of Miguel Almeida and Piquet, who won last time out in each class. Are they going to be able to take the pole position today? Are they going to have that nigh-on impossible task of leading that first lap? It's something that we know the likes of Lando Norris struggled to do in Formula One last season. Are these boys going to have those same issues?
It'd be really interesting to see as practice is quickly coming to a close. About 30 seconds left in the session. So we're going to be seeing solo qualifying real quick here. Watching these drivers navigate the corners, we take a look at probably a preview of what's going to be happening very soon after qualifying. Navigating that chicane is going to be very difficult for a lot of these drivers, especially in multi-class with the LMP2s and the GT3s going to taking each other to task. But as we get ready for this, I can tell you for certain, I honestly got mixed up. I thought we were racing Monza combined, and that would have been an even bigger massacre than anything else on the grid. But that being said, everybody on this grid is a really talented driver. There is somebody in this field who I think has somewhere around 7,800 iRating today. So, like, you have some really big players here who know what they're doing and aren't going to be distracted by... they're not going to be distracted by the fact that the turn 1 and 2 chicane are gone and the mess is going to be moved up a little bit.
10 minutes on the clock then, and a 4-lap limit to see who's going to be the fastest around the Temple of Speed layout. Simple on your own qualifying, no slipstream games like we see so often at this racetrack in real life. It is going to be a case of who has got the best setup, who's more confident into those corners, who can take advantage of what little downforce they do have bolted on. It's so important to not be scared of those curbs at Della Roggia. They look really intimidating and really scary, but you'd be surprised at just how usable they are as we follow Miguel Alonso for Full Gas Motorsport Alpha on their outlap, one of the many LMP2s in this field. I think a lot deeper a field than we rocked up to Le Mans with. I remember we might have had a look at the numbers for that one, but I didn't quite write it down. But Alonso taking advantage, it feels weird to say the surname Alonso. I'm sure plenty of people have it, but in a sim racing capacity, I'm here for it. And Alonso taking advantage of the brand new tyre model on those LMP2s, giving him a good old weave before they come down to the Parabolica or Curva di Alboreto, whatever you prefer to call it, for the very first time to set his first lap. Amity, I do believe we have some sort of gears speed telemetry box you can throw up. So we could just show exactly what sort of speeds we're going to be reaching down here. There it is in that bottom right corner of your screen. It is
there we go.
34 seconds from the apex to Parabolica at full throttle all the way to the braking zone for Della Roggia. You just watch as that speed climbs and climbs and climbs. We saw 295 Ks in practice, but Alonso looked close to blasting through 300 kilometers an hour. It's strange. Without that first chicane, Monza drives almost like Le Mans, as you really need to take some rear wing and maybe some rear ride height out to generate as little drag as possible to carry as much speed through Curva Grande as you can. A lot of drivers might even rock up here on a Le Mans setup. I can tell you from back in the LMP1 days, it's certainly something we tried at least 1 or 2 times when the track temperatures were low enough. But we're looking at 26 Celsius out there on track tonight. You might need a bit more downforce to try and combat that heat a little bit. But again, these are the questions that are up in the air tonight as we make our way very quickly towards the race session, and Miguel Alonso makes his way very quickly towards Parabolica, thinking his time will be the first on the board as he gets hard on the brakes for turn 9, normally turn 11, but tonight turn 9. That's as a few corners as the likes of the Red Bull Ring have, if you count them properly. To the inside of the track he goes, crossing the start-finish line. What is it gonna be for Alonso? Just waiting for it to pop up on the board. It is a 128.839, which is fastest in LMP2 at the moment by just under 0.3 of a second, as XPD Racing and SCK Racing both get the opportunity to beat that time, as it's going to be Schlottmann to the top, Canyon Lopez following in second, bumping Miguel Alonso all the way down to 4th place. Now 6th place, I think 3 other drivers have set times. At the top of the GT3 field, though, it is a Sonic Racing Team car up there, actually. It's 2 Sonic Racing Team cars up there. Federico Faria and Miguel Almeida going second, then first, almost back-to-back. So already, Amity, a very fast, frantic, and tight qualifying session.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of very tight times. You can even see the gap between 4th and 5th is like 4 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Yeah. And then the gap from 4th to 6th is barely even a tenth. It is very close, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're negating that first chicane. You're going so fast that at a certain point, especially with solo qualifying, you don't have any slipstream advantage or anything like that. So you reach basically the equivalent of terminal velocity. The drag is holding you back. You cannot go faster. It is going to be all about your exit speed out of the Parabolica, I believe it is, the turn 9. And that's going to be where the important factor of making up as much time as possible, because you want to reach that terminal velocity where drag is holding you back and you can't go faster as fast as possible on the straightaway. And so we are taking a look now at Miguel Almeida in the McLaren for Sonic Racing Team Green. I think Sonic Team Racing is like an actual video game, isn't it? But
It is, isn't it?
yeah.
I've never played it, but that
Yeah.
seems like a game you'd play. I don't mean that as an insult.
No, of course not. I love Sonic. Sonic is great. Looks like, I believe, Miguel's setting a
fresh
time.
set of tires, for your reigning GT3 champion and also race winner from last time out. Just having another quick look down at the standings. We were looking forward to seeing a scrap between both of last season's champions, Luke Smith and Miguel Almeida, but it doesn't look like Smith is here tonight. That Ford Mustang not going to appear on the grid. Here's Jan Kerbs, the writer engineer in Esports Blue. A couple of cars out there on track tonight. Jan, of course, rocked up to the Hockenheimring, a very, very damp session with the Audi R8 for the first time last season, and won on debut, of course, starting that championship with the Ford Mustang GT3, not having a very good season at all, choosing to abandon every single point he scored for the Hockenheimring to pick up a new car and try and do something with it. And he did on debut, as one of the nearly on-pace racing cars jumps to fourth in the standings. We're just following Raymond Deniette, who had a fantastic race last time out. We saw him battling right at the sharp end. Speaking of the sharp end, NGC by Rubens Gas driver Pedro Paquette, who won last time out at Le Mans. Like I say, this track is going to race very similarly to Le Mans. We may even see some bump drafting on the run out of Parabolica on the run down to De La Roggia, so keep an eye out for that one as well. We'll keep you updated on that if we do see any bump drafting, because it's always entertaining to see sports cars do stock car strategies. And Amity, that is a Canadian in the field, which I'm sure is going to be very appealing to you to follow.
What, you think just because I'm Canadian I cheer for the Canadians? If you're guessing that, you would be absolutely correct. Justin DeLucia for Balca Black Jr. team in the Porsche. Trying to set some more laps down in the number 143. Fellow Canuck, love to see it. The more red and white we can find, the more Maple Leafs we can find, the better. Although, if you ask me, Toronto Maple Leafs, no, Winnipeg Jets. Regardless, though, heading down, heading down the straightaway. You can see on the dashboard here on the bottom right of your screen, 274 clicks, about 276, and that is going to increase in the slipstream. This is ridiculously quick in a sports car. It is not common that you see them going about 270 plus, and we could be seeing them going 285, 290.
I think the main thing for me there was how unstable the rear end of that Porsche 911 GT3 looked through Curva Grande. A couple of months back, actually, Stroll ran a special event here at Monza Combined No Chicanes. It's an event that I did end up winning, so I'll give my hair a little flick for that one. And I can't tell you how sketch those cars were at full pace through Curva Grande. It was a bit of a balance between like 1 and 2 wing to get through there safely. Like 2 would get you through there safely, but of course you'd have so much more drag on the car, and it looks like that is an issue that our drivers are dealing with today as Justin DeLucia goes for a spin in that Porsche 911. And yeah, we talked about how much you got to trim that wing out to go fast, but you still need downforce on the car for the likes of Ascari, and DeLucia proving my point perfectly there.
Absolutely. That is one of the trickier parts of this circuit, I would say, is making sure you got your aero balance correct. Running too much downforce means too much drag, means you're not getting enough top speed, but not running enough downforce means through those faster bits, especially the this corner right here, the chicanes, heading onto the long back straight, you're not going to have the type of grip, the dynamic aerodynamic grip to be able to hold it around those corners, and you're going to be going a lot slower than everyone else. Finding that balance is going to be very important for the drivers, and that very wacky kind of instability that you saw in the Porsche going through that really fast turn 1 is going to be one of those pain points for people running low downforce setups.
So qualifying slowly draws its way to a close. Less than 5 seconds on the clock. It is still really tight at the front of the LMP2 field, but not many cars out there on track at the moment, as the timer is going to run out. Everyone will be pulled off their hot laps, no chance to complete them, and our grid in LMP2 and GT3 is set. So as we approach the drop of the green flag, let's have a look at how the grid is going to line up for tonight's event. 90 minutes around one of the most famous racetracks in the world. It will be Canio Lopez from pole position for XBD Racing alongside Mikhail Sundstrom, both of those having good races last time out, but not quite able to reach that top step. Frank Schlothman will line up third alongside Albin Manson. Maxim Rubruck will be fifth on the grid alongside Alberto Garcia Blasco, who again was running an alternate strategy last week that almost worked out quite well for him. Daniel Fascia is seventh alongside Digiak Fajaro in P8. Looking a little bit further down the field, it will be Miguel Alonso for Full Gas Motorsport alongside Olivia Vigasju, a name that we struggled with last week and we're still struggling with. Please give us a pronunciation guide. Leandro Mendez will line up in 11th for Sonic Racing Team White alongside Felix Manzanedo. Carlos Pereira is 13th on the grid, unlucky number 13, alongside Bart Mattia to round out row 7. Pedro Paquette, your winner last time out, was only able to manage 15th place today alongside series newcomer Jessica Saban for Taylor Mills Racing. Victor Sonegren will line up in 17th for Twin Turn Sim Racing Delta, alongside Stefan Gwen in P18. Kostek Solerej will lead the 10th row of the grid, alongside David Smith for Luma Motorsport, and Scarlett Marco in P21, alongside series regular Nelson Clemente. Row 12 looks like this. Killian Claes with Dimitri Dennis for Fuel Vine Racing, followed closely by Matthew Luke for Fury Simsport and Alex Deiter for Slippers Racing Team. Carlos Acosta will be 27th on the grid, with Benjamin Rush alongside them. Renee Thalasinos and Cesar Cabral will round out your 30-car deep LMP2 field, as Amity will take you through the GT3s.
So Miguel Almeida, no surprise here, getting the top spot in qualifying. Been fast all season long, and that continues to be the trend today, with Diogo Teodoro, the teammate in the Sonic Racing team, going to be right alongside him. Then we've also got Federico Ferra and Gerard Sardeni in the row behind. I'm going to try and wrap this up before the race goes green. We've also got Raymond Deniette and Pedro behind. Then in the row behind that, we got Adrian Hanowitz and Jan Kurbs. Then we've got Justin DeLucia, who qualified in excuse me, hang on. I just need to make sure I've got the camera set correctly. And then we got why is my class position not showing? My bad. Justin DeLucia alongside Jan Kurbs, and then behind them as well, we've got... Where are we? Oh my god. 9th and 10th going to be going to Justin DeLucia and Gianni Pironi. And then Artur Loureiro, Carl Stout, Mikel Estevez, Aaron Broderick, Philip Spess, and Christoph Zander rounds out your GT3 grid for this race tonight.
Wrapped up perfectly as the pace car pulls into pit lane. Canio Lopez will lead them away. The green flag is in the air and we are rolling. It is a great start from driver's right-hand side of the field. We already have a few cars off in the background as they are 5 wide on the run down to turn 1. But it's going to be a slipstream fest all the way. The front of the pack already lining up like it is a super speedway race. Lopez weaving left, right, trying to get a good run through the corner as the GT3s get rolling as well.
GT3 is going all the way through the very, very long straight, as the LMP2s are now going to be taking the first corner of the track here, going all the way from 290 down to basically nothing. And it doesn't seem like we're seeing a whole lot of calamity. And as I say that, we got a car behind having an incident. That's Carlos Pereira, I believe.
It does look like it is. It might have been Dimitri Dennis, actually. I'm just trying to see if I can get a replay of that one to find out exactly what happened. It just looked like your classic Monza Concertina effect. It was Carlos Pereira, you were right. Yeah, your classic Concertina down into turn 1 as one of the Writer Engineering cars is looking for a move into Lesmo 1 on Pedro Vigario. Vigario not showing any signs of wavering to that one. as, it looks like Lorera may have gone off as well. So incidents up and down the field here at Monza. We've got a car pulled off to the side already. That's Matthew J. Luke for Fury Simsport. It looks like he may be out of this race. But someone who has moved forward already off the start is Mikael Sundstrom, who made a fantastic move around the outside of Schlossman into that, what is now the first chicane, as he moves up into second place. And these three are absolutely nose to tail for the lead. Sundstrom has a look to the inside. He's got overlap on Lopez. It may create an opportunity for Schlossman to follow him through. Lopez won't be able to turn into the corner like he did last time, as these two are going to be side by side through Curva Grande. They make their way down towards Della Roggia for only the second time. Sundstrom already gone around the outside of one car. Can he make it two? There's still some overlap from Lopez, but Sundstrom goes very deep, blocks the second apex beautifully, and Mikael Sundstrom moves up into first place.
A beautiful move from Mikael Sundstrom in that beautiful yellow and pink gradient, metallic, nearly on pace by Raceboat and LMP2 Dallara, and immediately making a huge gap to the cars behind. And now the cars behind are going to have to fend for themselves, trying to battle for second position. Right now, taking a look at Frank Schlossman in the SCK Racing LMP2 Dallara, being chased down by Albin Manson, nearly on pace by Sim Race Technic. So that's Mikael Sundstrom's teammate there, trying to battle it out for second position.
Two very distinct packs already starting to form themselves in LMP2. First one led by Mikael Sundstrom for nearly on pace, with the second one being led by his teammate in the number 81 car. So two nearly on pace cars leading two separate trains in this field. If this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 car field, or group even, starts the fight, it's going to bring the LMP2s right back together, and they're already really close as it is. Thankfully, that slipstream keeping everyone right in touch with each other, as we're on board with Albin Manson, maybe looking for a way to replicate what his teammate did in the first couple of laps of this race. It not looking likely this time around, but he is still on the back of that lead pack. There's going to be some opportunities to save fuel here. It's going to be a two-stop race for the LMP2s. They can't quite get those 45 minutes, as Miguel Almeida just getting out of the way for one of the recovering LMP2s, that is Cesar Cabral, who had an off on the first lap of the race. So Almeida doing a great job to lead his teammate Diogo Teodoro, with Gerard Sayes only a couple of tenths of a second behind him, as it looks like this is going to be your lead fight for at least for the foreseeable. That actually includes 3 Sonic Racing Team cars. Another squad that has absolutely brought the house to PPS to try and get a decent championship result.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting battle to watch. 100% as we take a look at Miguel Almeida trundling down the second sector of this fantastic racetrack. 4 cars literally in a line. Most of them red and white, one of them green, black, and white. And one of the more interesting things to see here as well.
We do have cars 3 wide on the run down to Curva Grande. Sonegren, Clemente, and I think Miguel Alonso involved in that one as well. They just slotted out into 2 wide, but I was having a look at the standings and I saw them like within thousandths of a second of each other. Look at this group. They are absolutely going at it. I think that may be a little bit of damage on the front end of Alonso's car, as Clemente has a big moment on the exit of the corner and leaves himself very vulnerable to David Smith, who will slip his car up the inside of Lesmo 1, as Clemente gonna have to take a second to recover, get his momentum back, and start working his way forward again. But David Smith up to 17th place just like that. And it's so interesting to see drivers that were such a big part of the championship, well, the lead fights in races last season, now only scrapping it for the likes of 16th place. It's a big dive down the inside for Clemente, who was desperate to recover his position, makes contact with David Smith at the apex of Ascari, just about manages to avoid rolling it back onto the track, but he's made it from just himself recovering to forcing David Smith to go on to recovery drive as well, as they drop down to 24th and 25th place. A disastrous move for Nelson Clemente there.
Absolutely. We're going to take another look at that. We did see that on the screen, but we did have another incident here. Nelson Clemente and David Smith getting together. Just a situation of trying to get a little bit too aggressive on the brakes, not being able to slow down in time, and running out of room. So Nelson Clemente certainly probably more than likely going to get a talking to from the stewards for that incident there. But both cars able to keep moving. Hopefully not as much damage on the LMP2s as we actually see another LMP2 going for a spin. I believe that is also Cesar Cabral.
Yeah, Cesar Cabral, driver who was already having a bit of a disastrous day. His day just goes from bad to worst. He is already, I think, 39 seconds off the lead of this race. As there's actually another recovering LMP2 that's already made its way back through. I think that's one of the Ricer engineering cars. But back at the front of the field, this battle still teasing us a little bit. I think a lot of these drivers using their heads a little bit and trying to save a little bit of fuel. Of course, as we say, they're not going to get to 45 minutes. There's way too much time spent on full throttle. Again, 35 seconds alone between the Parabolica and what is now the first chicane. So a little bit of lifting off on the straights, a little bit of lift and coast into the corners just to try and make those pit stops as short as possible, getting yourself some decent track position, because it's already looking like it's going to be so important here at Monza today. We talked about how those speeds are going to be absolutely insane. We are in the slipstream on board through Curva Grande here, as they're just tickling 303 kilometers an hour, I think I saw there, which is a huge amount of speed for these new LMP2s, as they've had those aero and tire adjustments and lost a significant amount of speed compared to what they had in season 4 of 2024 and before that even. And that's the beauty of this layout of the circuit, is it just gives us one of those Le Mans style straights all the way down the front stretch of the circuit, and means we get to see all these ridiculous speeds. And that's what you need for good racing. Good long straights and big long braking zones. The longer you can make those braking zones, the trickier you can make those braking zones, is when it's going to be driver skill on the brakes that helps make those overtaking opportunities happen.
Absolutely. And keep in mind as well, that wasn't completely tucked into the draft. That was quite a distance away from the lead car, and they managed to get 303 kilometers an hour. So if you imagine just a little bit closer and a little bit closer, you just start going faster and faster and faster, because that hole starts covering more of your vehicle as you're going faster when you get closer to the car ahead. So you could be seeing speeds upwards of, like, in excess of 310 kilometers an hour. And as you mentioned, with those aero changes, that is a huge number to be able to achieve in such a downforce heavy car.
You know, we saw Justin De Lucia having difficulties with the rear end of that Porsche in the qualifying session. It almost looks like all of these McLarens here are having similar issues. It's almost looking like an IndyCar oval race out there, as Gerard Sayes and Diogo Teodoro just peeking out of the dirty air of the cars in front to maybe try and find a little bit of clean air to increase the amount of grip in those cars through Curva Grande, because it's a very sketchy corner when you don't have any downforce on it. And it's part of the reason that this group is able to stay so close. It makes overtaking really difficult into Della Roggia, because Miguel Almeida has the cleanest air over his car and the most grip through that corner. But these big long straights allowing that group to close right the way up, and then it does become a matter of driver skill as to who can make up the most time through Curva Grande. Almeida pulling right to the inside of the circuit, try and create a little bit of a draft snake, try and break the draft from the cars behind to stop them closing up as aggressively as they have been. Just following the camera is right now with Gerard Sayes, as he is closing on the back of Miguel Almeida, but he has Diogo Teodoro closing on the back of him as well, within one car length as they enter turn 1. I don't think Teodoro is going to be close enough for a send into turn 2. He's not, but he's going to close right the way up, as it's Sonic Racing Team versus XPD versus two more Sonic and a Ricer Engineering esports car getting itself involved as well. Another battle pack just behind there. There's a flash of headlights, I think, from That would be Raymond Denier on Gianni Peroni. Clearly not happy with a move that Peroni pulled into the chicane as both cars go off at Lesmo 1. So Denier showing his distaste by going for something that looked quite aggressive on Peroni. I'm wondering if we can get a replay of that one to see exactly what happened and, well, before we start apportioning blame.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate situation to see, but this is where the festivities start there. This is probably where we saw that headlight flash.
Oh, it's a mistake.
A big mistake,
it's a mistake from the Audi that brings Niet right onto the rear end. And by that point, there's nothing that Niet could do, as that was another McLaren going off in the background there on another one of the Racer Engineering esports cars. I think that was Philip Spess. So, yeah, you see Estevez just touching the gravel on the outside of Lesmo 1. And I don't know if there was contact between
I don't think there was.
And Philip's best. I couldn't quite tell from the angle that we had, but Estevez ends up nosed in the barrier on the outside of the circuit. Here's another angle for you. See if we can make out exactly.
Yeah, just loses it on his own.
Yeah, completely lost it on his own, and then over the grass, over some very well-maintained grass, I might add. Love those stripes on the outside, but Estevez, he will be either recovering or his day will be done, because that is a very, very hard hit. Speaking of hard hits, that's excuse me, that's Viado into turn 2, getting hit up the rear by one of his LMP2 compatriots. I'm not quite sure who else was involved in that one, but that's going to be some rear end damage on the back of that car. Here comes the replay for you.
Oh no, that was actually the replay. That we were looking at something that had previously happened.
We're back to live.
Oh, now we're back to live. Yeah.
We talked about how tricky that braking zone is, Amity, and our drivers proving our point for us.
Yeah. You know, I did mention at the beginning of the broadcast, we're probably not going to see as much chaos as we seem to purport when we were leading into the broadcast, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see none. A lot of this track is very difficult. It's high speed, hard braking zones, long braking zones, and there is a lot of capacity to make mistakes, especially when you're running the car with low downforce like everybody would be on track. So that's going to open up the door for a lot of mistakes and a lot of instability, and that's what we've been seeing so far. A lot of people losing it on the exit of corners, a lot of people you know, kind of bumping into each other and not really getting the braking points right, because if you miss your braking point by even a blink of an eye, it can be too late.
Well, speaking of opening up the door, a slow Gianni Peroni through Ascari opened the door for Bart Mattia to make a move on Jessica Saban, but she was able to just defend the inside, push him onto the marbles on the outside, and it's actually given Fajardo one heck of a run. Coming out of Parabolica, was able to clear Mattia in the middle of the corner, and then with the extra speed in the slipstream, was able to pass Jess Saban in that number 41 TMR car as well, and make up 2 positions on one straight. That 41 car not looking like it's as trimmed out as all the other cars in the field here today.
I think that was a car in the gravel back there. It was. I think that was potentially... where is it? I think it might have been... Nope, Raymond's up here. Not exactly sure what car it was. Oh, no!
Oh, goodness me!
Oh, God.
Oh, that's Denier involved in another crash, and it's going to almost be a track blocker, as Saban has to slam on the brakes in the background there.
Oh, no.
2 GT3s and 2 LMP2s trying to take it 4 wide on the exit of Lesmo 2. As Denier almost comes to a stop on the straight and gets...
I think he's trying to redress.
In another incident.
I think he's trying to redress, like give the position back, but... Or maybe just, yeah. If I would have seen that, I would have been like, yeah, I think we're about done here. We're going to take another look at that incident, though. A very unfortunate scenario here, though. If we can get a little bit further back here.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at it on my own replays now. You saw one of the XPD racing cars going for a flip and a spin there. It's RPM Racing versus Denier into that corner as they go side by side. And you've got this LMP2 on the outside. It was Leandro Mendez. Moves over to the right, and I think Felix Manzanedo goes for a gap that isn't quite there yet. Mendez looks like he's trying to squeeze him behind the GT3s a little bit. And just on the frame that I've got it paused on, Manzanedo has got quite the angle pointing over to the right. So it looks to me like Mendes has tried to leave just enough of a gap, a bit of a 50-51 for Manzanero to go into, but Manzanero just misjudges the gap that's there, turns Mendes in the right rear, and that's what sends his car into the side of Denier, which that Mercedes goes into the side of Christoph Zander as well, as we very quickly end up with 4 cars out of this race in an absolute blink of an eye.
It's really unfortunate too. That's one of those scenarios where, like, this is not a track where, unless you're on the front straightaway, you can fit 4 cars. So I'm not exactly sure what Manzanero was thinking, trying to fit in a space that was not going to fit. It was not going to work. At a certain point, you have to let off the gas and be like, all right, I'm going to lose the tail of the guy ahead of me. Don't care. I'd rather be able to survive this race. But instead, making that split-second decision, going for the aggression, ended up completely ending not only Manzanero's race, but everyone else in the process that was in that pack. 4 cars completely erased, and it could have caught up more, because in that replay, as we were watching in slow motion, we saw Jessica Saban slowing up, and there was another LMP2 coming really hot into the yellow flag incident, and had to go on the grass on the inside of the kink in order to avoid Jessica Saban. So, like, they could have been even more catastrophic than it already was. It's a whole situation that could have been easily avoided by just letting off a little bit and being patient.
This is one of those few moments where we get Taylor Mills has opinions. This is one of the reasons that I think yellow flags should be server-side and enforceable. The amount of times that people in iRacing just drive head first into yellow flags with no regard for their own race or other people's races is becoming an issue. We know that iRacing have that race control update coming in the next couple of seasons, so fingers crossed that is eventually something that gets fixed, because I'm sure I'm not the only person, even in the commentary booth, the production team at ABN, but I'm sure I'm not the only person in this session right now that has been taken out by a car not checking up for a yellow flag, or have taken themselves out of a race by not checking up for a yellow flag.
I mean, I only have 2000 iRacing. It is a constant. You see a yellow flag and you know there's somebody who's going to arc a brake through it and take it or leave it. I'm through it, Harry, or you're in it. You know, it happens so often that it's practically a meme at this point. Really hoping for those changes that iRacing brings as we take a look at Mikhail Sundstrom, the front pack of the LMP2 Dallara class with him. In the lead right now is Kanya Lopez in the XPD Racing Endurance 812 car, and just behind Mikhail is the Frank Schultman SCK Racing, and Alba Manson nearly on pace by Simrace Technic, along with a couple other cars behind.
Yeah, so Sundstrom, of course, we saw looking really quick at the start of this race, but Lopez looking like the better driver through traffic, because those two have swapped positions since we last saw them. So much has happened in this race whilst we were looking at so many incidents as the LMP2s and GT3s met for the first time. Only 10 GT3s left out there on track. There are still LMP2s, by the way, filtering their way through the GT3 field. These folks have been clear of them for a good lap and a half or so now. But yeah, only about 2/3 of the LMP2 field has actually made their way through the traffic, as Sundstrom looking to recover from the position he lost through the GT3s. And it looks like the driver of the 899 has the pace. He just needs to take advantage of it now and try and get that all-important track position over Lopez yet again.
We're taking a look on board yet again with Mikhail, and we're going to take a look at see those speeds. 300 clicks. Probably would have been about 305 before taking that right corner, scrubbing a little bit of speed from just turning the car around it. Trying his best to stay on the tail of Caio Lopez, because it's going to be very important to stay in that draft, especially at this point in the race. You don't want to lose that all-important draft, because going on that front stretch, that's what's really important. If you're out of the draft, you're out to lunch, you're in no man's land, you're not catching them. You need that draft to be able to keep up. As we see again, hopping curbs, rather. Just doing everything he can to try and squeeze every ounce out of the car.
Yeah, that's so important at a track like Monza, where you need to be able to carry so much speed through and out of the corners, using every inch of track out there that's available to you. There's a pretty nasty off-track and slowdown on the exit of the Parabolica that's surprisingly easy to catch up. That it fortunately doesn't look like it's caught out anyone so far today, but the drivers are going to be hunting for that extra little space, using the curbs where they can. You'll see them so many times go four wheels off the track at lights 1 and 2, but that's because of the amount of speed they want to carry on the exit of the corner, because however much speed you carry out of the corner, you bring with you all the way down the next straight. And I know a lot of you watching have probably driven this track and driven any track in sim racing, but you know how satisfying it is when that delta starts to go green, when you get a really good exit from a corner, and then it just keeps going green and keeps going green and keeps going green on the way down to the next braking zone. It's in that case, I'd compare it to Blacktrey, where funny number go up. Back at the front of the GT3 field though, Gerard Says is still right there under the rear wing of Miguel Almeida. They have managed to shake Teodoro and Faria, as Almeida running out of friends in the lead group right now, as it is a straight fight between Sonic Racing Team and XBD Racing at the front of this field, just in the background there. A recovering David Smith down in 20th place in LMP2 goes very wide, and it actually lets the other two Sonic Racing Team McLarens slip through as well. I've got to say, I'm very thankful for the fact that I've got overlays. Otherwise, I would be very confused as to which Sonic Racing Team car was which. So here's a little... Oh, never mind. One of them is in the barrier. I think that's
Federico Faria. Yeah.
So was it contact with an LMP2, or was it a self-spin? We did see David Smith in the background there, who's already been involved in an incident with another classmate of his. We'll see if we can get a replay up for you to show you exactly what happened to Faria, but a very unfortunate moment for him, as he knows his way into the barrier on the exit of Lesmo 2.
The API we're using is having a bit of a struggle on this track. It seems I keep seeing on track, off track, on track, off track, and I keep getting erased from my event viewer. It didn't even suggest that Federico had even crashed there, so I don't know what's going on. The SDK we're using is having a bit of a conniption, so unfortunately we couldn't be able to replay that, but taking a look back at the front, it seems the gap might have been closed up, and we might be seeing XBD going for a pass here.
Well, this will be the first change of position in GT3 we've seen all race long. If Gerard Says can make it work, peaks a little bit out of the slipstream to get some more grip on the front end of that car once again, but it does check him up just a little bit through Curva Grande, which means that Almeida is just far enough ahead that he stays as about as under threat as he like into that, or what is again now the first chicane. Still getting used to that one. Into De La Roggia, Miguel Almeida still leads, but what this is doing is letting Says just save fuel and save fuel and save fuel. And we've talked about how important the fuel save is at a track like this. In LMP2s, where fuel save isn't so much of an issue because you can't make it to 45 minutes, you can't make it for that one stop. The fuel save is only going to save you a few tenths of a second on pit lane, but these GT3s can do it on the one stop. And if you're sat behind another car burning 0.2 liters of fuel less a lap, doesn't sound like a lot, but after 5 laps, that's 1 liter less of fuel that you burned. After 10, 2. After 20, 3. And you can see how quickly that can stack up depending on how much fuel you are able to save behind the car in front. Now, of course, there are no engine maps in GT3s anymore. Those have been outlawed for a good few years at this point. But you can still save fuel by just lifting off the throttle a little bit on the straight, maybe holding it around 97%, or big lift and coasts into the corners. Because of how much time you gain back in the slipstream, that's what really lets you make those big lifts and coasts. Lose a couple of tenths into the braking zone, gain a few tenths back on the straights. And Gerard Says is making great use of that so far. And just letting Miguel Almeida punch that hole in the air and make Almeida burn all of that fuel. We've already alluded to this race feeling like a bit of a NASCAR super speedway race, but we're really seeing that in action at the front of the GT3 field.
100%. That is probably the biggest reason why Gerard Sardeni is choosing to sit behind, because we did see he was right on the back bumper. He could have just kept the hammer down and peeked out for a pass, but I think this is a little bit of gamesmanship here. Whether it will work on someone like Miguel Almeida remains to be seen, though, because we've seen him win a lot of races last season, and I believe he might have been... If he didn't win last race, I can't remember. It's been 2 weeks.
He did.
He did win in the GT3 class. So, like, putting respect on his name, it doesn't really seem to matter if the car behind him is saving or not. He's still able to find a way to get ahead. So either he's got the strategy on lock, or something else he's got is on lock, and he's able to save the type of fuel he needs to keep that first position at the end of the race. So, you know, this isn't necessarily a bad move from Gerard Sardeni's point, but he's going to need the pace to be able to overcome Miguel Almeida in addition to this kind of strategy if he wants to be able to take the win here at Monza.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I just went on board with Almeida a little bit into Parabolica, because I thought I heard a little bit of fuel saving, and I wondered if it was from him or the car behind. And it's both of them, actually. Of course,
really?
Gerard Sardeni able to do it a little bit more aggressively because of being in the slipstream, but both of these cars are saving a little bit of fuel, so Almeida is making an effort to bring down that fuel deficit by the time they come down pit lane. But also, what he's doing by saving that fuel is he's slowing the race pace down as well, because of course you're going to lose those tenths of a second into each corner for the 17 laps that they've covered so far. And it's not only going to mean he has to cover less laps, and he's going to have to put less fuel in at the pit stop. He's also letting Diogo Teodoro behind back into the draft. Just on this straight alone, the gap's already come down by 0.3 of a second. So Teodoro, who's pushing, is able to make his way back onto the tail of Gerard Sardeni. And it's going to give Miguel Almeida a friend to work with later on in this race. We talked about how we could see cars bump drafting. If Teodoro can jump Sardeni in the pit cycle, admittedly at this point it's going to be really difficult considering he hasn't had slipstream for a few laps. That's when we could really see that teamwork element really start to come into it. It's going to be full ball, full push to the end of the race for the GT3. So just keep an eye on it in the next half an hour of this race or so as we get into the GT3 pit window to see exactly what it is the Sonic Racing Team squad are going to do.
Meanwhile, looking up around the LMP2 field, we're taking a look at Pedro Paquette and Victor Sonnegren from NGC by Rubis Gas and Twin Turn Sim Racing Delta, respectively. Pretty well under a blanket, the two of them, fighting for P10. About a tenth or so behind them as we take a look on board here. And once again, we're going to take a look at that dashboard. Like, it is incredible seeing the kind of speeds they can achieve here. This is about as close as we've seen LMP2s get, and only getting to about 295, 296. So the LMP2s are fuel saving as well, it seems. Even if it's just a little bit.
There is also the possibility of a lot of cars using different setups. It is an open setup championship here, so opportunities to bolt on a bit more downforce if you feel like you need it and going to be running the slipstream the entire race, so don't need to worry about it. Makes the car a touch more comfortable into corners such as this, the Lesmos, to make it easier to get past GT3s, as there's almost a bit of a moment there between Sonnegren and Paquette as they get a little bit checked up behind one of the GT3s. And here it is. Here's that bump drafting. We've waited half an hour for it, but Pedro Paquette is one of the first we've seen on broadcast to jump on it, pulls way to the inside of Sonnegren, not perhaps happy with how he handled getting past that GT3 traffic. But finally, after talking about how it's super speedway racing, we see some super speedway racing.
Bump drafting in LMP2s, it's a classic. You know, you wouldn't expect these wedge-shaped cars to be able to do it, but they can. That splitter really lifts up in the front end of them. If you take a look, it's almost like squares it off, makes it possible here on iRacing. Not something I would necessarily recommend in real life, I don't think, but here it works, so why not?
Ruin that rear diffuser. Yeah, like your best bet is just hang a little bit off the back if you want both cars to go fast in a straight line, but Fortunately, in iRacing, they do build them a little bit different, as we've already got a few GT3s down pit lane. It's a couple of the Writer engineering cars that have pitted at roughly the same time. I don't know if that's a strategy call, or we're looking at some damage on that McLaren, or maybe even a penalty at this point, question mark? I don't know what you can see, Amy.
No, it does seem to be just fixing up some damage, perhaps. We did see this car, Philip Spess, I think earlier got involved in an incident, so I'm probably taking a little extra time to repair some damage, and we're also seeing a few of the early retirements, Raymond Deniette being one of them. Meanwhile, towards the front of the field, it's still Miguel Almeida's race, with Gerard Sardeni a little bit further back than we've seen him. But coming down the front stretch, you can see that gap really being extended now, so Gerard Sardeni might have been fuel saving just a little bit too much. And now getting that gap to be a little bit too big to be able to capitalize on that fuel saving. We're also seeing Diogo Teodoro actually fall back a little bit as well. So fuel save mode might be in full effect here. They might be just saving as much as they can as opposed to trying to push each other. As Diogo is a 1.5 seconds back from his teammate, now almost 2 seconds.
Gerard Sardeni still comfortably within that slipstream of Miguel Almeida in front, but the pit window for the GT3s is open. Even at a track like this where you are so long on full throttle in these cars, it's still about an hour on a tank of fuel. Again, we've still got a lot of drivers trying to stretch that. That is a legitimate strategy when you've only got a one stop and only have to put in the amount of fuel that you need to get to the end of the race. But if you wanted to pit now, I probably wouldn't recommend it, because I wouldn't fancy running around with 100 litres of fuel in the car for the next hour or so. I'd want to be running as light as possible. That's like rule one of strategy. You don't pit onto the red tyres in an Indy car and put a full 70 litres in the tank if you only need to run 10 laps.
So the LMP2 splitting the GT field here. Do the front GT3s go for the pit stop? No, they do not. Not yet.
No, they're not going to be doing that for another 25 minutes or so. But speaking about pit stop cycles, we are getting very, very close to the end of the tank for the LMP2s. As I say that, that is one of the nearly on-pace cars making its way down pit lane. It is going to be Oliver Vigaju.
Oh, Vigaju?
Yes. Comes down pit lane, first LMP2 to blink, followed closely by one of the Eagle cars. It's the Squadra Veloci Alpha by Eagle RS cars.
I am confused why his name is Hagstrom on my bottom right-hand display, and it's Vigaju in the top left. This is confusing.
I think it has something to do with the way that each bit of the overlay reads the surname, because Hagstrom is the first of the last names, as we've got a lot of cars after the background. I think that's one of the nearly on pace cars, actually. Whereas the leaderboard pulls the actual last name. So
gotcha.
It's not just confusing for you, it's confusing for everyone else as well. As Oliver Vigaju makes his way back onto pit lane and takes that pit limiter off and goes flying out onto the circuit yet again. All of these cars you're seeing still out there on track right now have pretty much been in slipstream the entire way so far, and truly taking advantage of that to extend that stint by just a little bit longer. But they'll be eyeing up pit lane very, very soon, as I believe you may have spotted a battle on track, Amity.
Yeah, we're seeing a two-car battle for P12. This is between Rene Thalasinos and Dimitri Dennis of Twin Turn and Fuelvine Racing, respectively. The two cars have been battling out for quite a bit, but the gap has shrunk between the two. They were a lot closer towards the second sector of this track, but it seems like Rene Thalasinos actually taking the pit stop, while Dimitri Dennis making the interesting strategy call to stay out. And he's going to be skipping ahead a lot of people.
And a spin at the back of the field for what was 18th place in LMP2. Jess Saban for TMR goes all the way around into that second chicane, lost all of her slipstream, is now having to battle with Tiogo Teodoro on the way into Lesmo 2. Of course, a fresh set of tyres for the LMP2s at this stop, as it is a full tank of fuel, but she clearly isn't dealing with those cold tyres very well. Here comes a replay for you. We'll see exactly what happened. Just coming into Della Roggia, just trying to spot if there's any sort of lockup. Carries a lot of speed in, way too much for what the car can handle. Brake bias perhaps a touch too far back for what that cold rubber can take, and the rear end just completely gives up, and that Dallara P217 goes for a spin.
Yeah, that's a pretty common mistake to make among sim racers, is to forget to reset your brake bias a little bit further forward than you had it when you came into the pits when you take new tires. The cold tires really don't like reacting to the rearward bias. They're easier to lock up until you get them up to temp. Pretty easy to forget, and an unfortunate situation for Jessica Saban, losing a lot of time.
So the leaders are down pit lane this time by Kanye Lopez, Frank Schlothman, Alberto Garcia Blasco, Dimitri Dennis, we saw come down earlier as well. I don't think anyone else stayed out, but this is your driver that you're trying to keep an eye on as to where he comes out relative to the rest of the field. I've got one eye on Lopez. The broadcast has one eye on Sundstrom. So let's see how close these two are going to be together on pit exit as Lopez gets rolling off of that first pit box, gets off the pit lane speed limiter. Sundstrom is going to have a lot of momentum out of Parabolica as one of the racer engineering LMP2s goes by, and here come nearly on pace. Lopez just about to turn in for Curva Grande, so nearly on pace, a very, very far behind the XPD racing driver, and I think already it's quite clear exactly what the right strategy call was.
Yeah, pitting earlier seems to have been the correct call. Ooh, a little bit of a squirrely moment, a very scary moment for Kyle Lopez, getting it sideways out of the second chicane there, the second portion of that chicane. Managing to save it. I have no idea how he saved that. That car was completely 45 degrees and he brought it back around.
I think that's the really interesting bit as well, is there wasn't much time difference between Lopez and Sundstrom on pit lane. It was almost identical, so all of the time loss was on the outlap. In fact, speaking of time loss, eyes at the front of the field, Frank Schlothman was down pit lane for 52.2 seconds compared to 1:07 for the rest of the LMP2 field. We know these LMP2s can't go to the end of the race on a tank of fuel, but Schlothman has chosen to take his splash and dash at the first pit stop of the race. It's a really interesting call, Amity, as it's going to open up a lot of opportunities towards the end of this one. A driver that might have the chance to go really fast in this middle stint for a really short amount of time. But if Lopez, Blasco, and Sundstrom all get hooked up together, being in the slipstream, they're going to be a lot quicker.
Absolutely, that's probably the biggest concern for Schlothman at the current moment, because if they stay hooked up in this draft here, they're just going to keep going faster and faster. Like, even the car ahead gets the advantages of being in the draft because it makes the turbulent air behind a little bit smoother and reduces drag on the front end of the car. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out in the long run, but currently in the short term, this pair of cars is sitting about 17, 18, 19, 20 seconds or so behind the leader. So short-term gains for SCK Racing, but whether it pays out in the long run will be determined by the pace of the nearly on pace teammates here in front of us.
Well, they are in fact nearly on pace. Albin Manson averaging about 31.0 in terms of race pace right now, whereas the cars in front all in the 30s. As actually Schlothman sets the fastest lap of the race of 1:29.0. Wow. But we've got two teammates in LMP2 a little bit hooked up right now. To make the super speedway racing analogy yet again, If these two get bumper to bumper, they are going to be so much quicker than everyone else out there on track. I'm keeping an eye on the lap times. They were about 1.2 seconds slower last lap than Schlottmann. So that much lighter car looks like it's actually outweighing the slipstream benefit for now. So Schlottmann's pit call looking like it was the right one to make at this early stage.
And it makes a lot of sense too. Taking less fuel means your car's lighter for the first stint, or for the second stint of the race. And as a direct result of that, you're not only going to be faster on the straights because there's less mass to try and move forward, but also through the corners there's less mass to move around laterally. So you're just going to have more grip generally in your vehicle if you have less fuel. Or you're going to have more grip, less fuel. I think I said that. I can't recall. My memory is absolutely shot today, but regardless, Schlottmann might have been an evil genius here, deciding to take the splash and dash for the second stint here.
So here's your numbers to keep an eye on for when the LMP2s come down pit lane for the second time. Schlottmann owes us about 15 seconds on pit lane. His stop was 15 seconds quicker than anyone else, which means he took 15 seconds less fuel as Albin Manson goes very, very wide into the Parabolica. So the gap that he's looking for over the XBD duo that have managed to get a little bit closer together in this second stint is 15 seconds. If it goes under that, he's going to lose the position. If it stays ahead of that, as it currently is, Schlottmann is going to be in the absolute hot seat. And I'm sure Lopez and Garcia Blasco are seeing that as Cita Cabral pulled off to the inside of the circuit, posed down pit lane. I think that's going to be his race over. But yeah, big focus on strategy in LMP2 right now, as Schlottmann owes us 15 seconds of extra fuel in the final stop, and is currently well within the margin of coming out in the lead.
Meanwhile, towards the front of the pack, there's actually been a bit of a shift here. Jan Curbs finds himself in second place for the GT3 class in the Ryder Engineering Esports Blue Audi, separating Miguel Almeida and who we are spectating at the moment, Ruben Lorente Jr. This is going to be very interesting. I'm not exactly sure how Jan Curbs got that far ahead. I wonder. They pitted.
Hit cycle in GT3.
Okay.
We've ever so slightly missed 21 laps for Miguel Almeida on that stint, and 18 for Jan Curbs. He actually spent 12 seconds longer on pit lane than Miguel Almeida, but has still been able to make up so much time. So a really impressive bit of strategy from him there. Maybe if he wins this race, we can find out exactly what happened, but there's so much going on through the pit stop cycles that we've got a lot to catch up on, Amity.
It seems to be the case. This is the closest battle on track, though, for the GT3s, this three-car trio of Jan Curbs, Ruben Lorente, and Diogo Teodoro. Jan Curbs in the Audi, Ruben Lorente, the target car, the white and green, and then the iconic Sonic Racing team, red and white, just behind. These three cars definitely the closest on track, but not the only real battle on track as well, because Miguel Almeida is completely gapping the field, 20 seconds ahead of the next position in GT3, doing a fantastic job keeping that car clean and pointed straight. And as I mentioned earlier, that is going to be the important factor for anybody to try and overtake Miguel Almeida, is not just on the pit strategy, but on the raw pace, because Miguel has been like clockwork, like a machine, just constantly ticking out laps that are just incredibly quick, even for a track like this.
I'm just having a quick look at his lap times now. Let me read a couple of them off from about lap 12. 38.6, 38.8, 38.6, 38.3, 38.4, 38.1, 38.3, 38.1, 38.3, 38.2, 38.4. He is zooming. That is a really, really good amount of consistency.
Add another 38.3.
To slowly bring that lap time down and just be absolutely metronomic with how he's banging those lap times in. His fastest so far of the race, a 37.7 that was set only 5 laps or so ago. So really taking advantage of being in clean air and just doing everything he can to try and gap the rest of the field. As you said, Amity, it's already 21 seconds as everyone behind is in a little bit of a scrap right now. Jan Kurbs versus Rubens Lorente on the right-hand side of your shot. Diego Teodoro looking like he wants to get involved, but Kurbs thinking better of keeping his nose in on that one. The Audi R8, the shortest wheelbase in the entire GT3 field, can get very, very, very sketchy through Curva Grande. To hark back to that Stroll race again, we did have someone that had such a torrid time in the Audi R8 on that Monza combined no chicane layout that they had to abandon the car and switch to something else because it was absolutely miserable to drive. The R8 itself is a car that is usually quite oversteery, which is why it lends itself to Kurb's driving style so much. He comes from that era of LMP1 driver where the car was just so loose all the time. So he can keep a hold of that as he makes his return to the 4 rings after abandoning them in the last couple of seasons of LMP1. But he's really, really making the most of the car he's got underneath him to have closed up all the time that he has and really started to challenge for that second place in this one.
And we'll take a look at the battle box here just to show you the intervals. If I remove the other overlay we got here, I wish it would just automatically remove itself. In any case, you can see how tight these cars are and just how much tighter it's going to get with all of these cars here, all 3 of them under a blanket, being led by the XBD GT3 car. You can see just how, right on the back bumper, might have been a little bit of a bump draft into the corner. You can see how wide Young Kurbs is going just to try and get some air on the splitter and the rear wing, trying to keep that car stable because, as you mentioned, shortest wheelbase on the field, so it's going to be a very, very unstable vehicle through that really, really fast right-hander. A very smart idea from Young Kurbs because it hasn't been losing him a whole lot of time, but that a little bit of an off track, a little bit of grab of the gravel is going to be losing time for sure. Still within the draft though, as Ruben Lorente, Diogo Teodoro and Ruben Lorente battle it out, and the 2 McLarens.
You're getting the McLarens mixed up, Amity.
There's too many McLarens. There's so many.
Too many McLarens.
There's so many.
There's so many.
Why are there no Fords?
Because Luke Smith isn't here.
I want more Fords.
Go and talk to Project Valorous if you want a Ford on the grid, because Writer Engineering have completely abandoned it as well.
Aww.
It is not that good a car.
But V8.
Not in iRacing. Yeah, V8 do go burr. V8 do go burr. But instead, we have a full field of V8 go buzz.
Yeah.
These British,
it's fine.
British
it's fine. I'm a fan of the McLarens. They're just it's the only. There's other choices.
You know, we had this exact same argument in GTP for the last 6 months.
Yeah, that's fair.
On Acura. That thing has been OP for way too long.
It's got to get a bit of a nerf.
Oh, it already has. They put a series bop on it in the IMSA iRacing series and GT and the IMSA Endurance series that isn't actually solidly applied to the car. It's a conversation that has controversially been going on in PEC since the start of the season, that the championship haven't applied iRacing's BOP. They've chose not to apply the newly introduced iRacing BOP to the class, which has meant the car is OP in PEC as well, but of course that's all going to be change after we go to and come back from the Nürburgring 8-hour race next weekend. Stay tuned for that one. It's going to be a banger, one of the best tracks on the sim, as we've got that next big step in the tyre update coming for the GTPs. But just to turn one eye to the front of the LMP2 field for a second, we don't need to come off this battle, I just want to talk about it for a moment. Frank Schlothman has actually lost I say lost. He's been bubbling inside and outside of the margin that he needs to come out in the lead of this race. Lopez just nosing within 15 seconds of the car in front now, 14.7 to be precise. But with Alberto Garcia Blasco only a second behind, there's going to be a question of, is it worth just lifting off a little bit for a lap, getting his teammate into the slipstream so that both of these cars can start to move forward together and start to more aggressively close that gap? Because with the way it's going backwards and forwards right now, Schlossman could still have that margin when they come out of pit lane, and it will mean they have a race on their hands. Whereas if they can link up and work together, it makes that job a lot easier to pull off.
Yeah, that 15-second interval, very important to try and stay ahead of, to try and expand that gap. Because as we mentioned earlier, SCK Racing, they took the splash and dash approach for their first stint, as we see SCK Racing actually run by. That is Frank Schlossman, mixing it up with the second, third, and fourth positions in GT, getting hung up a little bit in traffic with the lap traffic right there. The number 82, it's going to be very important to try and expand that gap, and you can see that interval slowing. Managing traffic, very important. Schlossman needs to be above 15 seconds in order to be able to make up the amount of gas he's going to have to put into that vehicle in order to stay ahead of the XPD Racing endurance cars behind him.
Yeah, Schlossman having a really bad time with traffic on that lap, getting held up into Lesmo 2 and on the exit of Ascari. 2 corners followed by really, really long straights. You need to carry the momentum out of that one, and because Lopez didn't have that same sort of traffic through those corners, he was able to get that gap closed down to 13.7 seconds. We always talk about how important traffic management is. It's still really important here as we play a little bit of a waiting game now to see exactly where on the track Lopez is going to get his bout of GT3 traffic. He's going to get stuck really quickly into De La Roggia behind Pedro Vigario, who's going to deal with him relatively swiftly without, well, still actually gaining a little bit of time. But we've still got that three-way battle pack, the second in GT3, that Lopez has to deal with. Each of those cars not going to be wanting to give up too much time, if any at all, because they need to stay in the slipstream of those around them so they can actually fight the second. They don't want to get separated from their friends. But Lopez doesn't want to lose any more time to the SCK Racing car of Frank Schlossman at the front of the field right now. So I imagine he's going to be relatively aggressive with the GT3s as well. Only time will tell. He's 1.9 seconds off the back of one of the lap down GT3s and 2.6 behind Jan Kurbs at the tail end of that fight for P2. Just looking out the window there, you can see the group of 3 just ahead. And to me, Amity, that looks like it's going to be a very, very clean pass.
Yeah, that's going to be an advantage given to the XPD Racing endurance car sorry, I can't read.
Lopez, you're okay.
Canio Lopez. I've been pronouncing it correctly. It just looked like an R from where I'm sitting. I don't know. My eyes are bugging out on me today. And yep, clean pass on the trio of GTs ahead. So that is going to be time saved for Canio Lopez on the SCK Racing machine of Schlossman ahead. That is putting Frank Schlossman in a very rough spot here, as Canio Lopez getting the time advantage here and basically cutting 2-3 seconds off of the gap.
I think a really cool thing that I've noticed about this championship so far is how unpredictable it is. We only have one car from the front of the field from the last race out, as Lopez has a big moment in the middle of Ascari, just about manages to get it gathered up and will continue with minimal time loss. But yeah, to lean into the unpredictability of this series, we've got no Paquette up here this week. Alberto Garcia Blasco still up within the top 3, but your race winner from last time out is way down the order in 19th place. So Monza, back-to-back, 2 straight-line speed circuits as Schlossman comes down pit lane, providing 2 very different sets of results already. That's a driver change, Amity.
That is a driver change. We have a new driver in the SCK Racing car. That's Mark Hagel. And that might explain why that first stint was a bit of a splash and dash, trying to... I don't know how that would work out, but that driver swap does take time, and it might add time to this pit stop.
Well within the fuel window. This is going to be a full tank for SCK Racing, and those 30 seconds it does take to swap out the driver is going to be well within the window for the fuel. As they roll out of pit lane after spending... Where is it? Oh, my timing tower. I can't quite see it. It is 1 minute and 9 seconds on pit lane, which is actually 2 seconds longer than everyone else spent on pit lane in the last pit stop. So we'll see how that's going to affect things down the line. What's Mark Hageler's pace going to be like towards the end of this race? Again, it was that 15-second deficit that they were well inside of. So can Lopez and co really turn the wick up now to make sure they are well safe when they come out of pit lane this time?
This will be really interesting because as far as I recall, this is only the second time I've seen a driver swap happen, and there's a GT slow on track, but managed. I think this is only the second time. Yeah, that was a Ryder Engineering car
Gianni
behind
Peroni.
in the Audi.
Yeah, Gianni Peroni, who's already one of the recovering drivers. Talking about GT3s though, as we were distracted by one pit cycle, another GT3 pit cycle has kicked off, I believe, as Miguel Almeida. Now quite the way down the order, an 11-lap stint, spending 53 seconds on pit lane. I'm wondering if they've stuck a fuel tank limit on the GT3's rule change on us in the last 2 weeks.
Might be the case, because Miguel Almeida taking a pit stop, and I do wonder...
Oh,
he's taking another one.
Another pit stop.
No, he's got damage on the car. Something must have happened to Miguel Almeida when we weren't paying attention, because there is damage on the car. That is... He only recently left the pits as well, and I don't see it anywhere on here.
You know what? Remember we saw Gianni Peroni going a little bit slow.
Oh, you know what? I do see that on track, so on my event viewer, so we'll see. Oh, it absolutely is. You're so right. Oh, no. This is so unfortunate. Miguel Almeida coming up on Gianni Peroni.
Yeah. There is a phrase that me and my friends have used for years that I can't say on broadcast, but it's something about half-butt sends, get half-butt defends. And that's exactly what happened in this situation, as you've spotted something, Amity.
I spotted something else as well. I see a notification here in my event viewer. We might have seen a situation with Mark Hagel. I could be wrong. It could be an error from the event viewer. No, it is not. That is a spin from Mark Hagel. Not quite getting those tires up to temp yet. That is a critical mistake for SCK Racing. That is really not what they needed.
So a car that was in contention for the win in this race, making a mistake in the early phases of that final stint for the LMP2s. Similar situation, in fact, for Miguel Almeida, getting tangled up with Gianni Peroni only a couple of minutes ago. That's effectively taken him out of this race. It has, in fact, taken him out of this race. That car will be a retirement. There is no one in it right now. So Rubens Lorente, the XPD Racing, makes his way to the head of the GT3 field. And we saw him in a bit of a battle pack with Teodoro and Jan Kurbs, who's just come down pit lane. But in all of that melee, he's managed to build a 3.2 second gap on the other Sonic Racing team car. So the question is now, what's going to happen on pit lane the next time these GT3s come down? Is Jan Kurbs going to be able to gain the same amount of time that he did in the last pit stop cycle and start challenging for the lead of this race?
No matter what happens, we're going to see a new winner in the GT3 field for this season. A very uncharacteristic mistake from, well, not even necessarily a mistake. He was tailing Gianni Peroni pretty closely behind. Gianni was the one who made the mistake, and he was just caught up in it. But regardless, a turn of the fortunes for Miguel Almeida, and now we're going to be seeing a new victor in this season of Pilot Series competition. And it'll be interesting to see who actually ends up on the top spot. Is it going to be Ruben Lorente in the XBD Racing GT3 McLaren, or is it going to be Diogo Teodoro, Miguel Almeida's teammate? It could also... What's that?
Do you like numbers?
I do like numbers.
46.4 seconds pit lane time for Jan Kurbs. That is a very, very short stop, especially relative to the one we saw in the first stint of this race. So the thing is, the cars that he was fighting on track don't have slipstream help anymore. Teodoro and Lorente are both in their own little bubble on their own, as is Kurbs. So if he can get these tyres up to temperature and start to really eke the lap time out of this Audi R8 GT3, he could start to close the gap. Keep an eye on Lorente and Teodoro for when they do come down pit lane, because we need to see where these two are going to come out relative to that Riser Engineer and Esports Blue car.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what ends up happening towards the end of this race. We are about we are well past halfway on this race. We got half an hour to go. Time flying by in this race. Lots of exciting moments to keep track of. Trying to look on my... I'm trying to stall so I can find my sector times. I can't find them. Where's my sector time overlay? Oh, doing commentary and production is so difficult.
It's going to recommend though. I don't envy you though.
Oh, absolutely not. No, nobody envies me.
I can't lie. I considered it for a little bit.
I found it. No, wait, I found it and then I lost it again. Here we go. There we go. We got it. We figured it out. Sector times. You can see here. Oh, wait, this is a lap delta. This is... where is it? I can't find it.
Canadian, take a breath.
I'm looking. I'm still looking.
Watching my friends struggle their way through production is what really killed the idea of even thinking about doing production. It is so much easier to just sit and sprout absolute bubbles for 90 minutes and write an intro than it is to do production. It's you've heard me write an introduction. You know I spend about 45 minutes lamenting over that, and I hate every single second of the process. But it just seems like you have an even more difficult time with production.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I'm just doing production, it's totally easy, totally fine. I can manage that. When it's production and commentary at the same time, I gotta think two different ways, like think about two different things at the same time. It's so difficult. And I found the lap time thing, but I can't find I don't have a sector timer, so that's kind of unfortunate. But regardless, young Kurbs gonna have to stay rapid on those lap times, and it does seem to be the case, gathering up to 5th position through pit cycles as the rest of the GT3 field starts coming through. And we are actually seeing some drivers come through the pits. That's Philip Spess, although I'm not sure if he's stuck in the pits or if he's taking his pit stop at the moment. He's about 1:14 in the pits so far.
That is a little bit long. I don't know if there is actually anyone on board that Riser Engineering.
There we go.
Esports. All right, no, there he goes. Okay, never mind. Ignore me. Might just be another damage repair for them. I'm so glad to see, though, teams going, you know what, let's get some more colour on the livery. I can't lie, for a while, I was a little bit dictatorial with the team liveries, and I was like, they have to be blue. We will put a personalised colour splash on there. But when you just go, you know what, everyone can have whatever colour they want, as long as it's not too similar to someone else's, it makes it so much easier to tell the difference between everyone. It's wonderful. It's like, what's the difference between Bigeju and his teammate behind? They're identical race cars. Livery makers. I'm putting a call out. Put some different coloured bits on your car. Help us differentiate them in commentary, as these two, though, are going to go side by side. It's going to be 3 wide with the TMR Delara coming out of pit lane into Curva Grande, into turn 1. Still, side by side, another LMP2 looking to get involved with this one. Rule 1 of racing is do not hit your teammate, as Bigeju loses the position to Albin Manson. Those two have been nose to tail for the entire stint so far. It was a mistake up at Parabolica that opened the door for Manson to squeeze through, and he moves up to 4th place, moving into the final pit stop cycle for the LMP2s. I almost said LMP3s. They're not that slow.
So, coming into the final 20 minutes of this race, the 25 minutes of this race, this is where the team orders start falling apart here. You know, every man for himself kind of deal. And we might have seen that there. Ooh, I think that car stepped out a little bit. I think that was Albin Manson stepping out the car just a little bit on the entry, but managing to keep it gathered up, unless it was just a rapid, quick turn in. That was like a Beyblade turning in there. And getting behind Jan Curbs, getting around Jan Curbs now, heading into the final corner on the track.
Still the best sounding car in the field, by the way. Easily.
Absolutely true. Yep. Them V10s. V10? Yeah, V10.
V10. Yeah.
I can hear the similarities to the Dodge Viper, and I know the Dodge Viper is a V10, so that's got to be a V10. Can you tell I like V10s?
Well, the R8 is famously a V10. It's the same engine that's in the back of the. Oh, hang on. Is it in the back of the Lamborghini Huracan? No, they switched to a V8, didn't they? Never mind, ignore me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can never tell because, like, some manufacturers go like, oh, yeah, this car that's famous for having a V10, we put a V8 in it now, or a V6 twin turbo, and it's like, no, don't do that. The acoustics.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure the Gallardo had a V8, didn't it? And the Huracan is basically the successor to the Gallardo. I might have to Google this a second, you know.
I really hope not, because I kind of like the Gallardo. It'd be really sad if it had a V8 instead of a V10. Yes, the V10 is a fantastic engine. It sounds great. Why would you?
I've got some great news.
Yeah.
5.2 liter V10.
Let's go. That's what we want to hear. Certainly less displacement than a Viper. I think it's got like something like 7.2 or something like that, but
that's
still
just the most American thing I've ever heard in my entire life. The Huracan had a V10.
The Huracan has a V10. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
5.2 liters. It's the same engine.
We've
just talked about V10 engines for an entire lap.
Yes, we have.
They're
great engines
happening out there on track, Amity. As actually there is a pass happening right now. It's Pedro Daniel Paquette, your race winner from last time out, being overtaken by Scarlett DeMarco on the run down to Curva Grande. Yeah, Paquette just putting up absolutely no effort to fight that position. Lets DeMarco slide up the inside of turn 1 and almost slots dutifully into position behind. Perhaps wanting a little bit of slipstream, or just ailing a little bit from some damage. I can't quite tell, but we've been talking about pit cycles. The LMP2 one has just kicked off. It's XPD Racing, Squadra Veloce Alpha, SNM, and NGC by Rubis Gas at the tail end of the LMP2 field make their way down pit lane for the final time.
Getting around about that time, I do believe Mark Hagel and the SCK Racing having that, the SCK Racing machine being the only team on the field, as far as I can tell, that had the driver swap, and it's the second time it's happened in Pilot Series. First time I think happened last season. And getting very close to that GT3 car. Gianna Peroni probably being a little bit too frisky with it. But unfortunately, with Mark Hagel having a little bit of a spin into the second corner of this track, rather, that first chicane, unfortunately losing a lot of time and now trying to make up as much of it as possible. But sitting in 8th.
Without trying to sound too biased, there has actually been one other driver swap in the field that I've noticed.
Yeah?
But it's also because I knew it was coming. The 41 crew swapped out Jessica Saban for Alexander Miller.
Oh.
It's almost like I knew that one was coming. I don't know how that's happened.
That's crazy, Taylor Mills. How would you know what's going on with Taylor Mills Racing? That's crazy.
Hey,
that's
listen,
crazy
I've made it my absolute mission to stay completely hands-off with both of these operations. I don't want any conflict of interest. I'll criticize them. I know when they've done bad things. I've done it before.
I mean, I personally enjoy when I see a partisan commentator. It's just whether you enjoy people hating you and loving you, because if you you're more than you're more than welcome to be partisan. But what?
I've been a top class prototype driver for 7 years. I am used to people hating me.
Okay, you know what? Yeah. I'm not even gonna argue with that one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
we've been
on the receiving end of it.
I've been on the other side of that end of that spectrum, and like,
there's a clip of it somewhere, isn't there? I swear we watched
there
it
has
just
to
the
be.
other day.
I mean,
I know what it was because I streamed those races on Twitch, and someone clipped it. It may have been you, and me and a couple of the guys in the team were looking back at some clips from my Twitch stream past, and that was one of them. Because it was so egregious that someone went, you know what, I'm clipping that. And so it's there forever.
I would not be surprised if it was me and I clipped it to be like, I see your inputs. I would not doubt it, because that incident did really tick me off. But also, that's kind of it was kind of a rough situation for you to be in any case. Like, we got netcode you're dealing with.
No, don't justify it. That was a really bad decision on my part. Back to the race, because we don't need to talk about this incident anymore. Nearly on pace, make their way off pit lane for the final time. So shorter stop for Mikhail Sundstrom as Albin Manson drops behind Bart Mattia. So that looks like a driver change. No, hang on. It's a change of position as Bart Mattia makes his way a little bit further forward through this field. Mark Hagler making his way into this battle as well. Much warmer tyres. Probably about the same amount of fuel on board. He's got about 3 seconds to cover on Mikhail Sundstrom in front if he wants to get up into what should be third place in this race, as Alberto Garcia Blasco makes his way down pit lane, as we now wait very, very patiently for Canio Lopez to make his way down that famous Monza pit lane for the final time. He did 24 laps in the previous stint. He will make 24 laps in this stint as well. Everyone else around him only going as far as 23. So big credits for Lopez for getting that 24 lap stint in and making sure this final stop is as short as possible. He will come off pit lane with somewhere around 15 minutes to go in this race, which is 20 minutes short of a full stint. So you can imagine how much less fuel that's going to be. It should be pit lane this time by, as he comes up behind Gianni Peroni, who has had an absolutely awful race, it must be said. Won't get tangled up with him. But the question is, who is going to be challenging him for that lead position? Alberto Garcia Blasco was relatively close behind before he came down pit lane. But with those cold tyres, he may have taken himself out of the window in this pit stop, also going 1 lap shorter. Here comes Canio Lopez, peels off to the right, hard on the brakes, doesn't have to be too aggressive on pit lane entry, as he is more than safe right now.
And we actually got an incident further back in the field. Albin Manson having an unfortunate incident, jumping to pits as a result of this, and you can see why. That's a lot of damage to that LMP2 car. How did this happen? Oh no, he was getting... Yeah, he lost it on his own. Just coming through the left. Ooh, too much.
That's a really lazy incident as well. That is so strange. It doesn't look like he held the brakes there either.
No.
But yeah, the car just... Well, Manson touched the curb on the inside of the exit of Ascari there, and it just pitches the car into a spin. And at that point, there's absolutely nothing he can do about it, as it gets spun around at over 200 kilometers an hour, and bang, into the barrier you go. And then it's race over. As Canio Lopez makes his way off pit lane, 8 seconds clear of Alberto Garcia Blasco. Blasco wants to win this race. He's got a lot of work to do. However, it's looking pretty comfy for an XBD 1-2 in LMP2 and a follow-up XBD win in GT3 with just over 15 minutes left on the clock and a final pit stop cycle well and truly done and dusted with. It is Canio Lopez, who leads the way. Alberto Garcia Blasco in second place. Mikhail Sundstrom in third. Bart Mattia in fourth. Mark Hagel has made his way back up to fifth place in LMP2. And in GT3, Rubens Lorente currently leads the way from Pedro Vigario and Diego Teodoro in third, with Jan Kurbs down in fourth. So just keep your eye on that timing tower now, as some of these gaps are going to start to close up a little bit, and drivers are going to get a lot more aggressive. Vigario from second place does come down pit lane. It'll promote Diogo Teodoro to second place even, but he is way back on Lorente right now. But we also saw what happened when Miguel Almeida had a 20-second gap. He lost it relatively quickly. In fact, saying that, Lorente owes a pit stop. He's on lap 21 of a stint, and the Sonic Racing Team car has made their final pit stop. So turn your attention to pit lane. Rubens Lorente for XPD Racing, currently leading in GT3, has to come down pit lane at some point in the next few laps.
Be very interesting to see how this turns out, because 42 seconds is within that window, so we will see this gap close up, and we might see a battle for the lead in the GT3 class. But right now, Ruben Lorente just focusing on that end lap. Not sure if he's going to come in now or a couple laps from now, but certainly going to want to make sure he's extending that gap as much as possible to try and get a little bit of a comfort blanket between him and the Sonic Racing Team silver car, piloted by Diogo Teodoro. Elects not to come down this time by.
GT3s can also go to 24 laps, but just in LMP2, I'm keeping an eye on this fight between Mattia and Hagel, as they are very close. A bit of bumping and banging on the exit of De La Roggia. Just a bit of nose to tail bump drafting mid-corner isn't usually the done thing, but they are coming up behind Pedro Vigario. Shouldn't get too much in the way. Vigario just needs to stay over to the right hand side of the track, and everything's going to be fine as Mattia and Hagel work their way through. I don't like that. That's the gap was there to do it. It was a relatively safe move, but
no, it's fine. It's multi-class things.
For him, yeah, fortunately for him, Hagel was able to make his way through relatively quickly and still get back over to the racing line. But it was this run down to De La Roggia that kicked off the bit of contact last lap. So let's see if Mark Hagel can get himself in a position again to try and attack Mattia for that fourth place. Look at the extra speed that LMP2 has over the car in front of it. Gets the nose turned in nice and early, bit of a touch on the curb, trying to run that corner as short as possible. Mattia defends to the inside, moves back over to the racing line, as you are allowed to do. But Hagel very aggressive over those curbs. Just carried so much more speed on corner exit, but maybe the instability affecting his run off the corner, as Mattia is going to survive for another lap. But we still have two even very long straights on this track to go.
As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, this is an open setup league, so everybody choosing their own setups to run, and it seems as though Mark Hagel might be running a little bit less aero on the car, because you can see just how much time he's losing in the twisty bits. But heading into a little bit of a sketchy pass for the multi-class, and now he's stuck behind the GT and finally getting released.
From the car behind.
Oh no.
Goodness me, Teodoro squeezes over to the left to try and get in the slipstream of Hagel, just not aware that one of the nearly on pace cars was coming up behind him as well. But because of that McLaren getting in the way, Hagel is now well under threat from Vigaju on the run out of Parabolica. But we've seen how much straight line speed Hagel has in that car. Is it going to be enough to be able to defend from the nearly on pace LMP2 behind him? As Vigaju pulls to the left-hand side of the circuit, they're going to be side by side on the way into Curva Grande. You can see how Hagel is able to maintain speed on corner entry. There is so little downforce on that car, but Vigaju is going to stay with overlap. Lots of overlap on the way into De La Roggia. Hagel has to break that a little bit earlier, and Vigaju is going to have the preferred line into the corner, and that will be fifth place. Nearly on pace on a tear right now, trying to recover some of those positions, as Vigaju is eyeing up Mattia already. That gap down at 1.4 seconds.
Incredibly quick thinking from Hagstrom, from Vigaju, to be able to pick up on the advantage that he had. And incredibly unfortunate for SCK Racing. Very unfortunate timing with the lap traffic, with the slower class traffic, and it might happen again with SCK coming on the exit. A little bit of it, maybe enough of a gap for it not to cause a problem, but could have been another issue for the multi-class interactions.
That is Rubens Lorente on his outlet, by the way, about 7 seconds clear of Diego Teodoro. So it does look like it's a pretty locked down class victory in GT3 for XPD Racing, as long as they can keep it between the white lines for the next 10 minutes or so. We talked about at the start of the season how XPD have absolutely brought the house to this championship, and it seems to be paying off for them. So they're currently 1-2 in LMP2 and leading the class in GT3. So a great effort from them to make that little step forward from the first race of this season to get 2 cars on the top step of each class. It takes some doing. It's really difficult to get so many cars that are on pace and quick for the duration, even of only a 90-minute race. So big credits to them for getting that done.
One car we haven't been talking about, Stefan Le Guin in the Squadra Veloce by Eagle RS car, making a pass onto 8th position over Scarlett DeMarco in the Twin Turn Sim Racing Aurora car, going side by side through that fast right-hander and making the pass done. And now it's a 3-car battle for 8th. Meanwhile, we're going to see some lap traffic come into conflict here with Carlos Pereira on the tail end. We'll ride on board there, see how this traffic affects. You can see the LMP2 leading this pack, being able to split the GTs.
A little bit close from Federico Faria on entry to Ascari there, and just doing that one thing that prototype drivers absolutely hate, of hanging around right in the middle of the racetrack. Just pick a side, it makes life easier. But absolutely everyone, Curb's blending his way over to the left-hand side of the track as well, is going to have a couple of LMP2s bottled up behind him. Depending on how they navigate him, this could be an opportunity for overtaking, as we're trying to focus on Carlos Pereira, who looks like he might be able to get a run on Scarlett DeMarco in front. We know how powerful that slipstream has been all race long, but look at DeMarco's car. Look at the speed out of that LMP2. They are looking like they're holding on to P9 right now. It's a question then of how Stefan Le Guin was able to get by, because that is one BD prototype. Pereira not actually able to close up on the way into the Della Roggia chicane. But let's see what sort of pace they have in this middle sector. Back end steps out ever so slightly for DeMarco in front. But this is where we're going to see a very clear difference in the amount of downforce in these cars. You can see how much the 10 car closes up in Lesmo 1, closes up again in Lesmo 2. There is a GT3 that's going to get itself slightly involved in this battle, as Pedro Vigario in 3rd place. DeMarco might have to go for an aggressive move, but if they choose to check up, it's going to leave them vulnerable to Pereira behind. And it is. So they need to time this run absolutely perfectly on the McLaren in front to make sure they can stay ahead of Pereira. Pereira was able to get the better exit from the corner, deep within that slipstream now, but the 28 has a lot of straight line speed. Pereira can't draw alongside, but it might be worth a dive into the Parabolica. Thinks better of it, as he's going to have to wait another lap to make another move.
Pereira might be recognizing he's going to need to make the move on the final corner of the track. We saw through the twisties that Pereira probably has a little bit more downforce than the car ahead of him does. So as soon as he gets ahead, the car behind is just going to slip straight past him. So being able to plan that move correctly is super important.
Well, if anyone was taking notes earlier in this race, I know I certainly was. One thing that Pereira could really try to do is make that move work into the Parabolica. After the debris refresh at the start of the season, marbles are absolutely brutal. We saw Jess Saban in the 41 car making excellent use of that, defending to the inside of the Parabolica, forcing the attacking driver to the outside onto the marbles, and there was absolutely nothing they could do, and they almost instantly got attacked by another LMP2 behind. So there's your plan of attack for Pereira. We know that DeMarco is struggling with cornering speed because of how much downforce they've got peeled off that LMP2. So if Pereira can draw alongside to the inside of Parabolica, it's going to make it very difficult for even a car with that much top-end speed to draft back pass on the run down to De La Roggia.
That's good thinking. Those marbles are going to be a detriment to anybody who's stuck the outside of the Parabolica, and it's going to continue that lack of grip, gathering up all those little forbidden gummies, as some like to say, onto the tires. You won't be able to lose all of them by the time you get to the end of the final corner onto the straightaway, and that can hurt the ability to turn the car through it and be able to get the run on to get to the finish line that they have just crossed there. So 5 minutes, about 4 minutes to go in this race. It is coming down to the wire, so if there's going to be a move, they need to make it soon, or at least get set up for it.
Yeah, I thought I had a piece of rubber lying around from Le Mans this year somewhere. I don't know where it's gone. It might still be in my bag, to be fair, but sadly, I can't find it. I'm sad about it now.
The Le Mans forbidden gummies.
The French. Oh, it's their Michelins as well, so they're double French.
Double
French
French
rubber on French ground from a French race.
Well, how about that?
Oh, that's a bit of a half send from Pereira there. Rubens Lorente wanted to hold on to that lead, was very gracious to let the 10 car by into Lesmo 2, but all of that is just letting Scarlett DeMarco pull away up there in 9th place. As we say, we know how quick DeMarco's car is in a straight line, and Pereira really needs that slipstream to stay within attacking range of the twin-turn sim racing Aurora car. So he's going to have to get just a little bit more aggressive in some of this traffic. With 3 minutes left on the clock, Canio Lopez has just come out of Lesmo 2. So it's going to be 3 laps to go for the entire LMP2 field. So by that stretch, Pereira is very much running out of time. 6/10 off the back of Scarlett DeMarco. Both drivers taking a bit of a step forward in average pace over the last few laps or so, but DeMarco just a little bit faster through that traffic and able to pull the gap out to 0.7 of a second. I don't think they're going to be in range to attack Stefan Le Guen before the end of this race, but they're at least going to be quick enough to hold off Pereira for 9th.
Meanwhile, as we take a look further up through the field, the battle for 5th is starting to rage on. It's getting pretty tight here between Victor Sonnegren, Bart Mattia, and Mark Hegel for, I believe that is Twin Turn Sim Racing Delta, Connection Lost Racing, and SCK Racing, respectively. But the SCK Racing car continuing to drop down through the field, getting down into 7th. We saw them as high as 4th earlier in this race. Saw them in 1st during pit stop cycles as well. But not exactly where Mark Hagel wants the car to be. Starting to catch up, though, to Bart Mattia. Currently sitting in 6th and making a dangerous pass on the inside, skipping over some pieces of the chicane and making it stick, making it work. That is incredibly high risk, but high reward if he's able to pull it off. He's on the outside of Bart Mattia, but Mattia able to actually defend the position very well. That was a very sketchy move from Mark Hagel and might have actually gotten a poor exit out of the corner.
And it's going to make his job much, much harder coming into the closing phases of this race as we tick past 1 minute to go. Canio Lopez just coming into Parabolic, and now you can see him on your screen there, almost makes contact with Miguel Almeida, who has come back out on track. The white flag will fly. It will be 1 lap to go as Pereira looks like he's lost another position to Dimitri Dennis, just losing so much momentum in these last 2 laps to drop out of the top 10, but the timer is about to tick over to 1 minute 30. We are on the final lap, the final tour of Autodromo Nazionale di Monza for Canio Lopez and XPD Racing, who have had a brilliant EGP of Monza. 1 and 2 in LMP2 as he gets big checked up behind Jan Kurbs and Federico Ferri, who are absolutely going at it at the end of this one. Rene Vlasinos getting held up behind them as well. Lopez just wants to get through this cleanly. He's got 4.5 seconds to Alberto Garcia Blasco behind, who is in relatively clean air and closing quickly. I don't think there's going to be enough time for the sister XPD racing car to apply any form of pressure before the end of this race. Canio Lopez passed into turn 2 on lap 2 of this race by one of the nearly on pace cars. It was at Sundstrom with that brilliant late braking move around the outside. But even with the scare on the alternate strategy from SCK Racing, Lopez and XPD banged in those lap times, lap after lap after lap. It was nigh on dominance for Canio Lopez, who with great ease wins the EGP of Monza.
Body check some lap traffic on the final corner as well to celebrate. Get out of my way, I'm here to win a race. Meanwhile, Ruben Lorente getting ready to finish in first position for the GT3 class cars. Only just began the lap, so it's going to be a very long trek for the 60th lap of, or I don't know if he's done 60 laps necessarily, but somewhere. He's done a lot of laps. We've done a lot of laps around this track. It's been a very difficult circuit to get to come to grips with. Taking out a lot of drivers we expected to be finishing in the top spot, including our last race winner and last season's champion in GT3, Miguel Almeida. But Ruben Lorente able to keep the nose clean with that XPD Racing McLaren, and is going to be going through onto the back stretch, heading towards the final corner to bring it home for XPD and ring out a lockout on the top position for XPD Racing in both the LMP2s and GT3s.
It took a little bit of luck to get Ruben Lorente into this position, but he has absolutely capitalized on the opportunity that was presented to him. As the V8 in the back of that McLaren 720S GT3 roars its way onto the start-finish straight for the final time, Ruben Lorente will win in GT3 here at Monza. And breathe.
Yeah.
I think that is about the race that we expected from Monza with no first chicane. There was a good little bit of chaos sprinkled in that one that I quite enjoyed. But of course, we will get to our post-race thoughts after we have conducted the interviews in the hopes that some of the drivers do want to talk to us. Shall we have a look at those race results then, Amity?
We shall. Let's take a look and see if I can pull up just the LMP2s here so they don't keep getting mixed up and everything. Hopefully this is just the LMP2 class, so why don't you go through the LMP2s, I'll go through the GT3s.
Always a pleasure. XPD Racing bring home a 1-2 finish, led by... Oh, goodness, I always forget the names, even though I've been commentating on them for an hour and a half. XPD Racing bring home that 1-2 finish, led home by Canio Lopez, with Alberto Garcia Blasco in second place. After having a brilliant first stint to this event, Mikael Sundstrom is only able to bring it home, well, say only, is able to bring it home in third place, followed by his teammate, Oliver Vigeju, in fourth. Twin Turn Sim Racing Delta get a car up there in fifth with Victor Sonegren on board, and Connection Lost Racing with Bart Mattia bring it home in sixth. After a bit of an alternate strategy, Mark Hagler brings the STK Racing car home in P7, and Squadra Veloce Alpha by Eagle RS with Stefan McGwen on board finish 8th. P9 goes to Scarlett DeMarco, who straight line speed was able to hold off Carlos Pereira, who only managed 10th place. Gilvine Racing's Dimitri Dennis finished in 11th with series regular Nelson Clemente in 12th. Daniel Fascia brings his car home in 13th, with the other XPD racing car of the Jack Pajado in 14th. The TMR41 of Alexander Miller and Jessica Saban finish in 15th place, and SRP Racing Team's Carlos Acosta finishes 16th. Killian Clace, who picked up a little bit of damage earlier on in this race, brings the Eagle Speed Academy car into 17th place in this event, and Rene Thalassinos finishes down there in 18th place. NGC by Rubis Gas with your last time out's race winner, Pedro Paquette, finished 19th, and David Smith was able to recover his car to 20th. Nearly on pace of Albin Manson, we saw have that big crash. One of the Writer Engineering cars of Benjamin Rush. Race 2 Esports, Cesar Cabral, Maxime Rubruck, Leonardo Mendez, Felix Manzanedo, Miguel Alonso, Alex Deiter, Kostek Solovage, and Matthew J. Luke will be your retirements in LMP2.
And then meanwhile, in the GT3 field, if we could pull that up as well. Hopefully it works. No, it doesn't. Of course. Why would it?
Scroll.
Okay, we scroll and we scroll and we scroll and we scroll. There we go.
We'll do it live. It's fine. We'll do it live.
So we're seeing overall here, but first in class is going to be the XBD Racing GT3 car of Ruben Lorente getting the win in GT3 with Diogo Teodoro and Pedro Oliveira Vigaro getting your podium spots. Jan Curbs getting a good finish here with fourth in that Audi, and Federico Faria right behind in the McLaren Sonic Racing Team Black. Carol Stout, the only Lamborghini in the entire field, getting, I believe that is, why can I not see the class positions? They're all broken. I am upset. Being in fifth, sixth, seventh. Oh my god, something broke in my SDK. I need to recheck it. Gianni Pioni sitting behind Carol Stout in the other Writer Engineering Esports Chrome Audi. Mikel Estevez and Philip Spess following behind, along with Artur Lorero and Miguel Almeida. That is your ZRT Momo Tires ARG, Writer Engineering Esports Orange NGC by Rubis Gas, and Sonic Racing Team Green Cars. Right behind Miguel Almeida, unfortunately DNFing out of the race, finishing 31st overall. 33rd overall, Raymond Deniette, we also saw him get into a bit of a pickle earlier in this race. And then Christoph Zander and Adrian Hanowitz, Justin DeLucia, and Aaron Broderick going to be also your DNFs in GT3.
So then, after that race, it is time to have a little chat with some of our race winners. I think first off, we're going to pull your LMP2 class winner, leader home of an XBD Racing 1-2, Canyo Lopez. Can you hear us?
Perdonar, ¿podéis meter a Fran para traducir que hable por mí? A Fran Labrada, a mi compañero de equipo, que yo no entiendo inglés.
Oh, he doesn't speak English.
Oh,
sí,
boy.
meter a Fran Labrada. Es compañero.
Do you have someone you can...
Está arriba.
I don't know what to do. I don't know any Spanish. I apologize. Translator? Teammate translator?
Sí, pero meter a Fran y él habla por mí, por favor.
Got him.
Está arriba, por favor. Ahí.
This correct?
Venga, Fran.
Fran Labrada, are you going to act as translator between us and Canyo Lopez?
You're muted, by the way, Fran.
Está silenciado. No entiendo nada.
Fran, if you're not aware, you're muted, by the way. We can't hear you if you're talking. Oh, boy.
I beg.
Oh, language barriers. They're so fun.
This is wonderful. I love this. I think what it comes down to is a big congratulations to Canyo Lopez. It was a very well-run race.
Dice que no le deja hablar, que está silenciado automáticamente. Que no tiene permiso.
He's not got permission to speak.
Tener que darle permiso.
One moment. I'm taking a look here. There is no server mute, so...
No, it's just muted on his end.
Permission.
Okay, hang on here. Let's see. I wonder if I could temporarily give you the commentator role there, Fran, so you might be able to speak. I'll just give you that role temporarily. You should be able to unmute now, hopefully, Fran. Potentially. Because you have the same roles that we do. There we go.
Ah, there he is. Hello.
Ahora.
Okay.
Can you hear us all right, Fran?
Yeah.
Yeah. Canio, it was a very well-run race for XPD racing as a whole. But I think one of the highlights for me was it can't have been too nice to see Sundstrom make that move on the outside of turn 2 so early on in the race.
Okay, first of all, I say I speak for my teammate because my teammate don't speak English, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Caña, te pregunta por el movimiento que has hecho. Yeah, my teammate, the turn 10, you say?
At turn 2, it was one of the nearly on pace cars move around the outside. Can't have been too exciting to see so early on in the race, and I was just wondering what went through Lopez's head as that move happened, and how was he able to turn it around to bring everything back towards the end of the event?
Vamos a ver, Fran, simplemente que tenía que ser bastante agresivo por los doblajes, por el tema de
me está preguntando por una acción que yo no he visto, ¿sabes?
Ah, ¿por qué acción? Pues es que no sé qué acción.
Por una cosa de la curva 2 y un 6 y no sé qué, tío.
Ah, pues no lo sé, nunca he ido ahora. Pero ya te digo que eso que yo sabía que tenía que ser bastante agresivo para distanciarme con el de atrás. Eso.
My teammate said that was very aggressive, okay? Because he wants to distance with the car behind. ¿Algo más, Caña?
Pues, nada más, y la estrategia era esa, ahorrar y aprovechar sobre todo el tema de los doblajes, aprovechar que siempre el primero tiene ventaja con los doblajes.
Okay, he said the strategy is to save fuel, okay? Sorry for the situation because it's a very difficult.
Oh, it's okay.
But that's it. Is my teammate he said it's very struggling because this track is very light downforce and the car is okay, and that's it.
Yeah, it was a very, to be fair, conditions looked very, very difficult out there.
Yeah.
We saw SCK Racing on that alternate strategy as well that meant XPD Racing as a team really had to pull off something special in that middle stint to close that gap up. So what was that like to see a car come out of pit lane 15 seconds ahead?
Bueno, me está diciendo Caño algo de un gap que como hemos recortado creo que los 15 segundos con el coche que teníamos delante, creo.
Sí, vamos a ver, ellos hicieron una parada corta y entonces en la siguiente parada tuvieron que meter más gasolina que nosotros, simplemente eso. Es verdad que ellos con su segundo piloto creo que tuvieron un accidente o un trompo y ya ahí estuvo el tema de llevar simplemente el coche a casa y terminar la carrera con tranquilidad.
Okay, my teammate Caño said that the car in front had an accident, okay, and the gap is closed by the accident.
Pero sobre todo por la gasolina, ellos echaron menos gasolina en la primera parada. Por eso salió a 15 segundos. Nosotros llenamos tanque y ellos no, ellos salieron con menos tanque, con menos litros. Por eso lo de los 15 segundos.
Okay, and the first stop in box, the other car put menos combustible en el caño.
Sí.
The other car put low fuel.
Less fuel, yeah.
Yeah. And later they have an accident and the gaps closed.
It did. Honestly, though, the consistency from you, Canyo, was very, very impressive in that race. So well done to you for that. But next event, we go from one extreme to the next. So what are you most looking forward to about Long Beach?
¿Qué esperamos para Long Beach? Well,
Lo corres tú, bro.
the next race I can raise money, okay? And with it, it's a very difficult track for the overtakes, low speed corners, a very different setup. And well, we see it because it's very difficult to Hi, you can listen?
Sí, sí, se te escucha.
Por eso, ya veremos.
Well, I know we're really looking forward to seeing if you folks can repeat that 1-2 next race. So all I really want to say is a big congratulations on the result.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for translating for us, Fran. Really appreciate that one.
Sorry for this situation because it's very difficult to explain the race. I can't race.
No, of course, it's absolutely no problem. It's I think it's a first for all of us, but it was great to still be able to get Canyo's opinions on the race.
Yeah, because you questioned me to the turn 2 wherever, and I don't race. It's difficult.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Thank you again, Fran.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias. So then, that was your LMP2 class winner, Canyo Lopez. So let's, Amity, I'll hand over to you to have a chat with your GT3 class winner, Rubens Lorente.
So, the GT3 class winner, Rubens Lorente, a new winner here in the Platinum Pilot Series. How are you feeling? How's the win feel?
Hi guys, I didn't speak English. Can you change to Gerard?
Ooh, do you happen to have a translator or someone who can translate for you? We only
Yes.
speak English.
Yes, Gerard Sardeni.
Got it. There we go.
All right. So, my question for Rubens, my first question would be, is your first race in the first win in the Platinum Pilot Series and a new winner for this season. How does it feel?
It feels so good because we were training a lot with my teammate. Rubens did an awesome second round of the championship, and it's so good for us.
That's awesome to hear. So, we saw through the pit cycles a few different drivers in GT3 took a few different strategies. What was your strategy heading into the pit stop cycles?
Yeah, we can do a strategy at all because we had the driver swap that are like 15 seconds, and we had to refuel most of the tank to the second pit stop, and we had to push at all and two pit stops. And yeah, it was good because our strategy we can do what we want. If we want to pit earlier, we can do it because the driver swap kill us, and it was good.
All right, and then as well, heading in 2 weeks' time to Long Beach. What is your mentality heading into Long Beach? Like, what is the thought process? Is it something that you're confident about, or is it something that you're worried about? In manner of speaking.
Both. It's 50-50. We only want to survive and keep the points and stay in the top of the leaderboard.
Awesome. Yeah, Long Beach is a very intimidating track, so I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much, Gerard Sayez, for translating for us as well. And if there is anybody that Ruben would like to thank, anybody they'd like to shout out, now would be the time.
Okay, thank you to XPD to give us all the setups and the host, and that's all.
All right. Thank you very much, Gerard, again, for translating for us, I guess for lack of a better term, gringos. And thank you very much, Ruben Lorente, as well, for sticking around with us. And congratulations on the win.
Thank you. See you.
What a race that was then, Amity.
That was an incredible race. Honestly, like from 2 weeks back, I thought it was Monza combined, so I thought we were going to see absolute chaos, but we still saw it here, even with that first chicane removed. And what surprised me is how much instability a lot of these cars had in the really fast right-hander because of the lack of that chicane. Running low downforce seems to make these cars real sketchy at high speeds, and it was really fun to watch these drivers manage to keep the car under them while they were just fishtailing around in that right-hander.
I think the most interesting part out of all of that for me was the fact that we came into this race expecting just a multi-class sports car race. But what we actually got was a multi-class sports car race, plus a bit of NASCAR super speedway racing, plus a little bit of IndyCar super speedway racing. We had drivers pushing each other down the straights. We had them peeking out from behind the draft to try and get a little bit of air on the outside of the car to keep those tires pushed right the way into the ground. And I think it's the really interesting thing about different layouts of circuits we know so well, like Monza with no first chicane, where drivers have to do things just a little bit differently based on the setup compromises that they had to make in the car. Now, next time out, it's not going to be quite the same. We are going, as I said, from one extreme to the other, from low downforce to all of the downforce in the world. And it's certainly another track that likes to throw up a little bit of chaos. Long Beach over in good old Los Angeles, California, is a circuit that's infamous for how difficult, tricky, nigh on impossible it is to do in multi-class. And if we have a similar turnout to what we've had today, we're going to have nearly, over 40 cars rolling around that track.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see that. Like, we have a huge grid here in Platinum Pilot Series. We had about 40 some cars. So seeing 40 cars barreling down California streets that were temporarily closed off into a road course, it's going to be nuts. And I personally had a few races, multi-class races at Long Beach, and it's a really difficult challenge, but I feel like the most important thing for the drivers to remember going into the next race in 2 weeks' time is going to be 100% the mental game. If you let the track intimidate you, if you let the multi-class atmosphere intimidate you, you will be intimidated and you will make mistakes. But if you go in thinking, I'm going to do the best that I can, I'm going to do what I can to survive, I don't care about position, I just need to keep the car off the walls, and you don't let it intimidate you. You go in with just the careful, safe mindset of somebody who just wants to get the job done. You can get the job done. That's how I got my A-Class license, and I keep losing it in the V8 Supercars series, but regardless, I still have my A-Class license because of those Long Beach races where you just go in thinking I'm going to have a good, safe race, and I'm going to stay out of trouble. So letting the track intimidate the drivers, that is going to be the key. The mental game is going to be the key.
Well then, folks, that is going to be it from us here at ABN for the Platinum Pilot Series Round 2 from Monza. Thank you so much for joining us for this event. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we do. Before we get to Long Beach, we do have the Platinum Endurance Championship coming at you from Nürburgring GP, which is one of the best racetracks on the entire planet. Definitely one of my favorites. For an 8-hour event, expect a lot more chaos, a lot more side-by-side racing, and some brilliant multi-class action. We certainly hope you can join us for that one. Certainly hope you can join us for Long Beach in 2 weeks' time. It's going to be all shaken up, especially after round 2 in PC, as we get the brand new Phase 2 GTP tire model. So a lot to look forward to in the coming weeks. I've been Taylor Mills. Alongside me pushing the buttons and on co-commentary, Amity Pulsatrix, and we will see you next time. Ta-ra.